We are back for another edition of the Awesemo MMA strategy shows. We're here to get you ready for UFC Columbus, which goes down on Saturday. Lock time, 4 p.m. East time with the prelims. And, of course, the main card will be at 7 p.m. East time, headlined by a heavyweight matchup between Curtis Blaydes and Chris Daukaus. So we're here for the next hour to break this one down for you. As always, we are sponsored by Prize Picks. Up here later on in the show, we'll talk about some Prize Picks, as I was already on there this morning and saw a couple of prop plays that I do like here for UFC Columbus. But, of course, as always, I am joined by the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. We coming here after UFC London. And Pete, you brought the point on Live Before Lock last week. I said, who's the fighter we're not talking about? I threw out Marquand Mirakwani, and man, he ultimately kind of was the guy you needed to win to take down last week.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. Good call, Jason, of saying that we weren't talking about him. Everything else for me was pretty spot on, but I got to some other underdogs and kind of like mixed my exposure. But Amir Khani was a guy I was glossing over a little bit. And, that fight really reminded me of just how, like, when you fight, you can't be too emotional. And, you can be dealing with a ton of stuff that Grundy was dealing with outside the octagon. But when you step inside, you got to be, all business. And I know it's very, very difficult for somebody to really put all that, and leave it outside the cage. But we've seen it in the past. I mean, the Korean Zombie did it to Mark Hominick when Mark Hominick had just lost his coach and came forward super aggressive, wanted to get the fight done early, and ended up getting knocked out in like 20 seconds or something silly. So, crazy card. My boy Aspinall looked great, and I'm so happy about that. And I had to bring it up for all the doubters out there. I love Tom Aspinall, and I'm hoping that you guys believe in him now. And now we got an awesome card going forward, and cannot wait to break it down with you and see what our listeners are thinking.
Man, we all know where your man crush list, man. This is like, these next couple of weeks are like a man crush list here for you. Last week it was Aspinall. In 2 weeks we got Hamzat. I mean, who's probably going to be priced like 9,500 on DraftKings because that betting line just continues to climb. And then your boy Romanov stepping in a couple of weeks against Tanner Boser. So it is a Pete the Heat man crush list coming up here. But of course, we're here to break down UFC Columbus. And of course, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. That definitely helps out a ton. Of course, if you're not subscribed to Awesemo right here on YouTube, be sure to do that. Of course, today's free premium data and tools over at awesemo.com are NBA main slate ownership projections, also NHL top stats. Of course, coming up after us will be the NHL strategy show. That's the guys to get you ready for tonight's NHL slate. Let's get right into his heavyweight matchup. Curtis Blaydes taking on Chris Daukaus. Curtis Blaydes, 9,200 over on DraftKings, 7,000 for Chris Daukaus. Of course, as we do this show, FanDuel lines are not out here. Pete, to me, this just isn't a hard one to break down. If Chris Daukaus as an underdog is going to pull it off, I think he knocks out Curtis Blaydes within 10 minutes of this fight. I mean, obviously there are some question marks you have, with the chin of Curtis Blaydes, but man, his wrestling is so spot on. And look, when Curtis Blaydes gets this one to the ground, he ain't playing jiu-jitsu, bro. That is not Curtis Blaydes' deal. He is just going to hammer you with strikes.
Yeah, for sure. And, I like to view divisions as, in tiers. And I do feel like, Curtis Blaydes is upon that elite tier within the division. And, he starts to get some momentum and then he'll get knocked out. And that's his Achilles heel, is just his striking defense. He gets hit with big shots. But it's against heavy hitters, man. It's heavyweight division, right? But as far as like skill set wise, he has some of the most unique skills within the division that can, pose problems for everybody, because any top heavy wrestler is going to, be a nightmare of a matchup, especially when you incorporate amazing ground and pound. Now, I do wish that Curtis Blaydes would start to really work on some submissions as well, because you're not always going to be able to TKO everybody. Sometimes people are too tough for their own good, and you need to really just choke them out, or, make that decision for them. If he just incorporated some like simple chokes, not saying like I want, learn an arm bars or anything, but like, let's work on an arm triangle choke or something like that to really, just get people out of there a little quicker. There are more unknowns surrounding, Chris Daukaus here, coming off that really, really bad knockout loss to Derek Lewis. How does he respond? Is he healthy enough to get back in the cage? Is he a little gun shy in his return fight? This is a massive step up in competition, and the UFC is really doing him no favors. Yeah, you want to headline another fight and try to work your way back against Curtis Blaydes. There's an opportunity for Daukaus to win here. He just has to land early and land clean. And, we can't really gauge the takedown defense of Chris Daukaus because we haven't seen it inside the UFC. But I'm fully expecting Curtis Blaydes to just be too much for most of the division in regards to wrestling. If he gets Daukaus down, I do think that a couple ground and pound shots, can definitely make Daukaus a little weary. And I'm leaning significantly in the Curtis Blaydes, side. I do think that this gets stretched out a little bit, but I like Curtis Blaydes inside the distance. 9,200, absolutely appropriate price tag. And I know that you love Curtis Blaydes this week as well.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing is, and when you pop in that Curtis Blaydes tape, and there's countless fights you can pull this up on, and you've seen it on tape, it's like, man, the rear naked's there, bro. Just take it. Just take it. And he just doesn't. I mean, it's just, you just know the Curtis Blaydes. I mean, look, Blaydes, and also I think you're just going to see a big size difference in this one. The two concerns I will say I have on Curtis Blaydes is potentially, Chris Daukaus landing that shot that drops him. The other thing is, with having that wrestling base, we saw this in the Volkov fight, potentially wearing down, but I don't know if Chris Daukaus got 20, 25 minute cardio either.
Yeah, great points. And, I do think that I favor Curtis Blaydes, his work rate, his cardio, even though in the Volkov fight, we were like, man, maybe that cardio is not as good as we thought it was. I mean, he landed 14 takedowns or something silly like that. Yeah, 14 takedowns against Volkov, and had over 20 minutes of control time. That's absolutely incredible, especially on a slate like this. We want to target these, these wrestlers with high upside. He has 5 rounds to work with. I don't think it goes 5, but he has 5 if it needs to. I just feel like the pace might be too much for Chris Daukaus, and let's not really X out the possibility of Blaydes landing heavy on the feet either. He's not a horrible striker. I think that he's a serviceable striker on the feet. He hits really heavy. He's knocked people out in the feet, but his bread and butter is mixing in takedowns and incorporating that vicious ground and pound. And this is kind of like a harsh reality about the sport, Jason, is how like we were touting Chris Daukaus and everybody's behind Chris Daukaus, and then you lose one fight. And recency bias is a real thing. And, it's very difficult to try to figure out if you're just being a little too biased about his previous result, or if you think that this matchup is somewhat of a nightmare for him. And I do think that the matchup is a nightmare for him. So I'm siding with Curtis Blaydes, not really so much about the knockout loss. It's just where I view Curtis Blaydes within the division. But yeah, it's a tough sport, man. You're only as good as your last fight. And unfortunately, Daukaus got knocked out pretty bad against Derek Lewis.
Yeah, it's and how does he bounce back from that?
Right.
Does he come out, guns blazing, or does he come out tentative and maybe tentative because he's going to be worried about the potential takedown? Co-main event is a female matchup. You got Joanne Wood taking on Alexa Grasso. 9,000 for Alexis Grasso, 7,200 for Joanne Wood. This is a fight, Pete, that I think I don't expect it to go to the ground. I think this is a fight that's going to play on the feet. I think the only way it probably goes to the ground is if we, have one of these ladies goes out and drop them. One thing from JoJo Wood here is I do kind of look at the front kick as potentially being a key part of her arsenal in this one, because look, Alexis Grasso, she's a boxer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that could be the difference maker here is of how just like Joanne Wood, can mix things up. She's a good kickboxer, and Alexa Grasso really likes to just rely on her hands, and her combinations are excellent. It's just that Joanne Wood likes to incorporate front kicks, low kicks, round kicks. She's just a Muay Thai practitioner, and I think that could be the difference maker here. And it might like be surprising for a lot of people, but I'm backing Joanne Wood as like an extreme value piece this week. I like the value at 7,200. If Grasso was like a prolific finisher, I probably wouldn't be getting to Joanne Wood. If she had a stronger ground game, I think that she has a solid ground game, but I think it's somewhat, level with Joanne Wood's, caliber on the mat. And then I would be a little hesitant, but in a striking affair where Grasso maybe mixes in one takedown just to get a little different, I think that this is going to be a kickboxing fight, which could end up working, for the underdog and Joanne Wood, who's had her up and down career where she's shown glimpses of her potential. And then it's just like volatility as well. I like her volume. She's thrown, she'll throw 200 strikes, land nearly 150 significant strikes. And I just think that she might have an edge in output. So unlike a lot of people, I feel like I'm going to be backing Joanne Wood this week at 7,200, just because I feel like Alexa Grasso in a win. Not sure she does enough because I don't think she'll find a finish. She hits hard, but Joanne Wood on the feet is pretty durable. So give me some underdog selections in Joanne Wood to kind of start off the card as like from a breakdown standpoint as a fighter I want to get behind in that 7K range. So 7,200 Joanne Wood, I'm all about it.
JoJo's a veteran of sport. Let me put a little true false with you.
Okay.
A win by Saturday by JoJo would be the best win of her career.
Oh God.
So I'm gonna give you her UFC wins. Zoe Hum, Courtney Casey, Valerie Letourneau, Kalindra Ferrara, Arlene Lipsky, Andrea Lee, Jessica I.
Yeah, well, no, I say Jessica I. Just because of like a notable name, but as far as like a skill set, I feel like Alexa Grasso would probably be the most skilled fighter she's picked up a win against, and she's gonna have to really pick up the volume and maybe the intensity in a situation like this. I mean, fighters on back-to-back losses, they're really hungry for that win, and it's nothing you can really like put your finger on as why you want to get behind them. But I think it's going to be a close fight. Joanne Wood via decision sits, at a reasonable rate as well. I think it's plus 330. We just spoke about it. And I like her here at 7,200 more than some of these other underdogs.
I mean, look, I just think it's going to be hard to get to Alexa Grasso from a fantasy aspect.
Yeah.
I mean, look, there's good reasons why she is a favorite in this matchup, but from a DFS aspect, I just think it paying off that 9,000 price in relation to other fighters that are around that price range, I just don't see myself getting to this. I mean, I'll be honest, this will probably be one fight that I'll limit exposure on. This is one of those things where I'm probably going to set some groups in relation to this fight of trying to limit how much I can get to. Next up, we got a matchup that I truly believe is going to be a key part of being optimal this week, and that is Matt Brown and Brian Barberena. Matt Brown, 8,200. Brian Barberena, 8,000. This match was supposed to take place a couple months ago, but Matt Brown tested positive for COVID, so that's why it ultimately got delayed to this point. Matt Brown fighting in his home state of Ohio. But man, I mean, obviously the price point sticks out to you, but when I think of this matchup, I just think there's going to be a ton of volume in the matchup.
I think there's going to be a ton of violence in the matchup, and the price point is going to be hard to get away from. I think that this matchup screams volatility. Like, I don't know. I don't trust either one of these guys, and I don't really view either one of these guys as like, UFC true caliber. They're kind of just like the veterans that are like hanging around. And Matt Brown to be fighting at his age is kind of incredible, and he has to look good and put together some strong performances. I mean, knocking out Diego Lima is pretty awesome. 91 fantasy points in a spot where he was priced at 7,200. This is a matchup where I just don't trust the durability of either guy, right? Like we've seen Matt Brown hurt numerous times to the body. We've seen Barberena rocked. We've seen both of these guys rocked. Both of them don't look like they know how to wrestle all that well defensively. Like they've been ragdolled throughout. They like to get, their work done on the feet, and you can't trust either chin. So it comes down to like who might be a little bit more aggressive, who could possibly get that hometown rub if it's a close decision. So I would agree with you in saying that Matt Brown at 8,200 would be the tiny lean. But I'm just going to view this fight as a fight I need to get to within, using Awesemo's tools, using a fantasy cruncher tool, just making a group. I think that the salary makes this a fight very difficult to get away from. And just how I predict this fight to be, could be violence throughout. The volume of Barberena and being a southpaw could pose problems to Matt Brown. That liver kick's going to be right there for Barberena, and we've seen Matt Brown crumble to the body. So we'll have to see. But it is a slight lean towards Matt Brown, as ugly as it is to say. But regardless, I view like this fight as a pure optimal fight. Like it's probably going to be in it. I think somebody's getting knocked out or finished.
Now, if Brian Barberena can get the job done, it'll be the first time since 2016 that he has won back-to-back fights.
That's crazy. I mean, Matt Brown in his past 3 fights, Lima, a victory over him, and losses to Condit and Baeza, whereas Barberena's past 3 fights, Weeks, Witt, and Ivy. I don't know, man. I just feel like Matt Brown's kind of fought like the better guys in a situation like that, which doesn't always point you in the correct direction, but that's where I'm leaning. That's why I'm just saying it's a lean. No confidence in this matchup at all. I think like targeting an under makes a ton of sense. I don't think this fight's going to go the distance.
You look at Barberena's wins in the UFC: Joe Ellenberger, Sage Northcutt, Warley Alves, Joe Proctor, Jake Ellenberger, Anthony Ivy, Darion Weeks. Warley Alves, I would consider the best win.
Yeah, for sure.
Number 2, Jake Ellenberger. Number 3, I don't know where I go.
Ellenberger was so good. Ellenberger was really good. But man, the damage on both of these guys, this is like just going to be violence at its finest. So I really won't care. It'll come down to roster construction and getting different elsewhere.
Yeah, no question about it. Next up, we have got a flyweight matchup that is going to be, from a fight aspect, is a fight that I absolutely love. That's Askarov and Kai Kara-France. Huge matchup at 125 pounds. Askarov, 9,100. Kai Kara-France, 7,100. We were talking before the show. I don't really love this one from a GPP aspect, but you brought up a really interesting point that you think a submission could be in play here.
It definitely could be. I mean, we've seen Kai Kara-France get submitted in the past, but, against Brandon Royval. And then in the fight, just, following that, Rogerio Bontorin had his back and had him in a horrible situation for a long period of time. And then, when he finally got out of that, he landed an amazing knockout blow. And you're not always going to be able to bail yourself out of situations like that. And some fighters are just really lucky, and it's good. It's better to be lucky than good sometimes. And Kai Kara-France is so talented. He hits really hard, but I view Askarov as like a very dangerous matchup for Kai Kara-France, because I don't think that he's ever faced somebody that's going to want to ragdoll him as much as Askarov is going to. He landed 5 takedowns against Joseph Benavidez, and I'll tell you what, Benavidez is one hell of a wrestler. So the fact that happened makes me really just view his wrestling in just high regard. 4 takedowns in his debut against Brandon Moreno. Tim Elliott's a really damn good grappler, but you saw Askarov have to overcome some adversity in that matchup. I just think the grappler priced at 9,100 with tons of takedown potential and a possible finish route needs to get some attention. And I think that he will when ownership comes out. I think that he's going to be pretty heavily owned. And I won't be getting away from it. I view people that are targeting Kai Kara-France. I don't view it as a bad selection at all, because if he wins, I think that he wins via knockout. I don't think that he's going to be better than Askarov for 15 minutes. So I don't think as a dart throw you could probably do worse than that. But Askarov, I think, might ragdoll Kai Kara-France en route to a submission finish. So 9,100 looks like an excellent price tag. And
Kingslayer bringing up the point for you is, how is Askarov on the feet, though?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point, Kingslayer, and he's like he's not like anything spectacular. But the pad work that I've seen and what I've seen in his fights is he'll strike into his strength, which is great. Is where he'll use his hands just enough to close distance and, evade a shot to really get back into the clinch and working his takedowns. If he stays on the outside and thinks that he's going to show off his striking, he's a fool. he is an absolute fool to go and do that against Kai Kara France, because that's how you're going to end up getting knocked out. And that's why I will have some exposure to Kai Kara France in case the fight IQ, which is the most important thing when it comes to, MMA fights and DFS, is that we can't really put a finger on, is if the fighters are going to have the correct fight IQ within the fight, if they take the correct path to victory. And if Askarov chooses to grapple, it's going to be a nightmare for Kai Kara France.
And, when you talk about fight IQ, I had Cody Bunge on my show this week, and we talked about Dolce and his fight. And I brought the fact of, hey, were you surprised by that takedown? And he said, he's like, when I coach yelled out 90 seconds, I could tell Dolce was tired. And he even joked that, so Cody's wife is Amanda Bobby Brundage. People would know her as Amanda Bobby Cooper. And he told me, he said, he goes, yeah, Amanda told me that it was stupid to go for a guillotine before the fight. It worked out pretty well getting that 50K bonus, but yeah, that was a rough start. For Cody Brundage.
A rough start. That is one way to really exhaust your opponent. Just take 500 unanswered strikes to the face, and then when they're possibly tired, just pull a guillotine. And hey, Brundage, you came through for us, but I thought it was going to go a lot different than that.
As I was watching that fight, I was like, "Oh, this ain't good. This ain't good."
It looked like moments and just the body language, right? And body language is huge, especially in the eyes of a referee. Brundage did not have the correct body language. I thought it was going to be stopped.
I did too. I thought the ref was going to come and stop that fight, but there's some refs out there that they expect you got to die for they're going to come in and stop the fight.
Yeah, right.
I mean, let's just be honest about it. Yeah, look, they're, Mark Smith, for instance, I feel like you have to almost die for him to come in and stop the fight. Chris Taioni, he's one way or the other. Either he comes in early or no, you got to die.
Yeah, I know. It's weird, right? And like, it's almost like, I think I brought it up in the past. It's almost like learning an umpire strike zone. Like you have to know, all right, this guy stops fights quickly. So if I just get him in trouble, if I put a flurry on him, I might walk away with a victory. Whereas some other guys, you're like, man, I need to hit this guy with the kitchen sink, everything in order to get this guy out of here, because the ref's just going to let it go on. I remember in one of my fights, my Bellator one, I hit the guy, I don't know how many times. I looked at the ref. I said, come on, ref. Like I want to do, I'm very respectful and all that, but I was like, dang, dude, this guy's taking a ton of shots. Come on, ref, get him out of here.
Oh yeah. There's always those fights we've seen where and more times than not, it's when the fight's on the ground where the fighter on top just looks up like, hey bro, you got to stop this or what?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely can say I did that, and I felt bad. I wasn't trying to be disrespectful. I just didn't want to hit the guy that many times.
The one that sticks out in my mind most recently was Gaethje versus Cerrone, where Gaethje's like, hey man,
that's a really good one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's bad when the fighter's like, hey man, you need to stop this thing.
Yeah, for sure.
But of course, this is the Also MMA Strategy Show. We're getting you ready here for UFC Columbus. Of course, if you want to get access to all the great premium data and tools we have over at Awesemo.com, you got to sign up for also a weekly pass for $29.95. Gives you access to everything we have over at Awesemo.com, from ownership projections, player projections, and so much more. And if you just want an Awesemo Plus MMA weekly pass, those start as low as $2.95. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. Before we move over to the next matchup, do want to mention there was a comment about Askarov and his fantasy scores, and they haven't been, especially when you're talking about for a 9,000 fighter. So his first fight in the UFC, Barberena, was a draw, scored 48.5. That Tim Elliott win, 71.5. Pantoja win, 71.3. Benavidez, 89.8. Those are not scores that you love when you're paying 9,100 for a fighter.
Facts. But guess what? And I'm going to say it. Arnold Allen was a terrible scorer as well. And look what he did last week to Dan Hooker. If a fighter falls into a finish or they have a correct path to victory, they can definitely, outproduce their mean. And I do think that could be a situation here where Askarov, if he gets a couple more takedowns, in a fight like this, he cannot strike with Kai Kara France. Kai Kara France will knock his block off, and he's going to be a very chalky punt play, and deservedly so. But what that's going to lead to is a lot of clinch work and tons of takedowns, which could result in a higher fantasy score or a possible finish.
Of course, let's move over. Next up, we got a heavyweight matchup between Ilir Latifi and Alexei Oleinik. Oleinik 7,600, Latifi 8,600. Of course, we all know what Alexei Oleinik is about, but Pete, man, there ain't much of a neck to choke.
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird. This is a weird fight. It's definitely a weird fight. You have Alexei Oleinik, a guy known for basically having incredible Ezekiel chokes, which is more of a gi technique than an MMA technique. But he's found a way to make it work at MMA. And man, the guy is just a finisher, and he'll go out there and hunt submissions. And I am worried about one thing is regardless of how, small your neck is, or how, lack of a neck, I don't even know how to word this, how Latifi does not have a neck. So if Oleinik gets behind him, I feel like that could be the only situation where possibly a rear naked choke could still happen, but I don't know. I'm favoring Ilir Latifi in a situation like this. I think that his hands might be a little bit too powerful. I like how he's been training with Francis Ngannou. I saw that. Francis and him seem to have hit it off. He's been training with some strong guys, and Ankalaev as well. He seems to have like a great group of people around him. I think that'll prepare him for an aged Oleinik. I don't think he's going to get taken down. If he does, he'll pop back to his feet. He's usually the guy who likes to get takedowns. So avoid the Hail Mary submissions, and I think he can get Alexei Oleinik out of there, to be honest. I like him here at 8,600. I like him with some finishing upside. It's just in heavyweight. Sometimes they don't need so many strikes in order to get a finish. So you'll get a finish, but it may be 90 points flat or something like that. And at 8,600, we'll have to be dependent on the rest of the slate.
Daniel says, how do you feel about Latifi over 1.5 rounds? Latifi is so low volume, and how does Oleinik choke someone with no neck? I will tell you, I do like the over 1.5 rounds. Even though Oleinik is a guy that, for the most part, either he's getting finished within 2, or his opponent is getting finished. To me, I would say I would lean over 1.5 on this fight.
I really don't like doing that in heavyweight a lot, because trying to predict which is going to be a sloppy hug fest and what's going to be a 1-round type of fight is very difficult. That's interesting. I don't hate it. I feel like just Latifi inside the distance is a little sneaky. But if you have no faith in Latifi, then you could target the over-under. But yeah, I seem to have a little bit more faith in Latifi to get this done than I feel like some do.
Next up, we got a lightweight matchup between Bone Crusher and Slavoclaws. Mark Diakiese, of course, a veteran here in the UFC. He's 7,500. Slavoclaws 8,700. Obviously, we saw what Slava was able to do in his last fight there against Dakota Bush. Tremendous knockout that he had in that one. And Mark Diakiese on the other side, he's lost back-to-back. And, I do expect this a fight that's going to play on the feet. The one thing that kind of concerns me is, Mark had spent a lot of time in American Top Team for a while, but it appears he's been over in England.
Yeah, so this fight's interesting, and I think it's going to be a violent one. And I'm going to be targeting both sides. And, I really like Slavoclaws. I like Borshchev quite a bit. I think that he has tremendous striking for the division. I do think that there are some holes in his game that he's working really hard on patching. And it's obviously his takedown defense, and it's his ground game, which in his previous matchup against Bush, sometimes like we see prospects, and in certain matchups, especially if they belong to certain gyms, if they have a path to victory, Bush looked good early in getting takedowns and all that. Like, you could somewhat negate the strengths of Borshchev by putting him on his back. But Borshchev, he works back to his feet, and when he hits you, man, he just rips to the body better than so many people within the UFC. And it's something that I absolutely love to see. And, this is an interesting matchup, because if Mark Diakiese does not incorporate takedowns, we could have a situation where Borshchev's just really building a name off of Mark Diakiese, the veteran within the UFC. I do think that this is a very, very close fight. I'm leaning towards Slavoclaws, Borshchev, just because I view him with some more powerful shots, but that doesn't go without saying that he needs to continuously work on his weaknesses. And, a correct game plan from Mark Diakiese could easily do that. I mean, he's gone the distance with Rafael Viziev. He's landed 4 takedowns against Lando Venata. He needs to implement a similar strategy in order to do this against Slavoclaws. I'm going to target Diakiese as an underdog. He's not my, he's not in my top 3. He's probably my 4th favorite underdog, but I will side with Borshchev just because of the KO upside and hopefully building off of a staple within the division.
Of course, one thing to mention about Borshchev, trains at Team Alpha Male, so he's working on that wrestling on a daily basis. That is what that team is known about. Of course, this is the Awesemo MMA Strategy Show. We are sponsored by Prize Picks. Be sure to sign up, deposit, and play over at Prize Picks. And when you do that, you'll get a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, and you'll get an email within 24 to 48 hours of how you can take advantage of that free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Of course, be sure to use that promo code Awesemo for an instant first match deposit of up to $100. I don't know if people can hear those airplanes based on Tyler's reaction. So I live in Tampa. I live by the Air Force Base. We have an air show going on this weekend. Clearly, they are practicing this afternoon.
Boy, that was awesome. I thought Tyler was over here playing like sound bites. That was fantastic. It was just enough. It wasn't too loud. It was just enough. It was kind of cool background noise.
Yeah. It's I've got a bunch of interviews after the show today. I don't know how much I'm loving that, but
bad day to do interviews, Mr. Jason.
But let's just say my house is basically in line with the flight line at MacDill Air Force Base. So funny thing, when me and my wife bought this house 14 years ago, every time we saw the house, never heard one airplane. Day we closed, moved in, we were like, oh, never heard that.
I didn't know there was a train in the backyard. What is this going on?
Oh, you get used to it. You get used to it. Yeah, you get used to it. But looking over at Prize Picks, so over on Fight Time, didn't really necessarily see anything I absolutely loved. We went over significant strikes, and the one that kind of stuck out to me, and I mean, look, it's heavyweight MMA, and you get scared playing this type of prop. I like the over 27.5 significant strikes landed by Latifi.
Oh Lord. Okay. Yeah, I like it.
Because I'm thinking this fight is not going to end quickly, and that he's be able to land some strikes at distance, even though he does have a reach disadvantage in that one. Yeah, now there is on the takedowns. I do like an underplay, and we're going to talk about this fight next. Neil Magny under 2 takedowns.
Ooh. I'm torn on that one, Jason. I think that's really close because I think that Magny can get takedowns over most people within the division, but Max Griffin is kind of sneaky good within that range of fighting.
Yeah, that's one of those things that to me it's one of those things of like, okay, he's got to get 3 for it to go over. I don't really love that. If that number can get to 2.5, that's a smash the under if he gets to 2.5.
That's what I'm saying, because I think 2 is really close. If it's 2, I'd say wait a little bit. Let's hope that it gets to 2.5 and then you hit the under on that. I would agree with you.
Yeah, I will tell you. I mean, the Blaydes is 3.5 takedowns. I'm like, man, I feel like that fight's gonna have to really draw out for that to be an over. I kind of look more at that as an underplay. You just mentioned about Mark Diakiese, 1.5 takedowns. That's kind of an interesting number.
He's going to need to get 2. He needs to in a matchup like that.
Of course, mentioned about Neil Magny and Mark Diakiese. Of course, be sure to play over there at Prize Picks. Use that promo code Awesemo for instant first match deposit of up to $100. And looking at this match between Neil Magny and Max Griffin, 8,800 for Neil Magny, 7,400 for Max Griffin. I don't love this one from a GPP aspect.
Yeah, from a GPP aspect, I would agree with you. The only way that I would love it is if Magny finds more takedowns in a situation like this. He landed 4 against Robbie Lawler, but obviously Robbie Lawler is super, super dangerous, and he scored 100 points. He landed 4 against Jing Liang, super dangerous, scored 99 points. I think that, he'll be floating pretty close to those numbers as far as getting 88 to 95 fantasy points. I really like Neil Magny from just like a cash aspect of who do you feel somewhat safe about coming through. I like Magny because I think that, Griffin is talented. Griffin's kind of on a streak right now, and I think it's going to come to an end. Yes, he hits hard, but I think the range of Magny, the volume, the pace, and just the level that Magny's at, I think he's extremely superior towards to Max Griffin. So I'm leaning and picking Neil Magny in this situation. Max Griffin, man, he could land one big shot or possibly start chopping down that leg of Neil Magny as we have seen in the past. But I like Neil Magny pretty heavily this week, and I'll be getting to him in hopes that maybe he does something. I'm not expecting a finish from him. So that's the thing. That's the one worry. And that's where I would agree with you in saying that you don't necessarily love this fight from a GPP aspect, because it's probably going the distance. And in order for it to go the distance, you need high volume or massive takedowns. And, it could be a situation where it's just a mediocre output, but Magny's going to win this fight.
Joshua, I want to answer his question. It's a generic question about discussing what's counted for significant strikes on ground and pound. I'll just give you the definition in terms of what is considered a significant strike is all strikes at distance and power strikes in the clinch and on the ground. More times than not, when it comes to strikes, it might depend on who's actually scoring the fight for fight metric.
I was going to say that.
Because there are sometimes you have seen some clear power shots on the mat that do not get awarded as significant strikes.
Very inconsistent. And it's kind of like super inconsistent, which there needs to be some clarity. And I think that anything on the ground should be considered a significant strike because, you have nowhere to go. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like you're being able to absorb some of the shot and, move away, or some of it gets deflected. Like when you're on the mat and you're getting your head bashed in, like that, everything's pretty significant. So like anything that Curtis Blaydes throws is going to be significant in this fight.
Yeah, no question about it. Let's move on to the next matchup. We got a female matchup between Sarah McMann and Carol Rosa. Carol Rosa, 8,900, 7,300 for Sarah McMann. I mean, look, we know what Sarah McMann wants to do. She's going to want to go in there and get the takedown. So Carol Rosa is going to have to defend takedowns here. One concern I would have if you're looking to back Sarah McMann in this matchup is she could easily score takedowns and maybe get up 2-0 heading to the third. But is that gas tank going to be there in the third? Not a matchup I really love. To me, this is probably more of a cash game aspect of it. I do like Carol Rosa to win the fight, but it's all going to come down to her stopping the takedown.
Yeah, for sure. So as far as who I trust more in 2022, it's Carol Rosa. Sarah McMann, like in her prime and in her earlier years, I think, just has a style that I felt like she could have been so much more dominant than she was. And I do think that she has some levels of quit within her. I do think that when the going gets tough, or when her cardio starts to abandon her a little bit, she gets a little tired, mistakes happen, and then you want out of the fight ASAP. I think that she can land takedowns against anybody within this division. And I really do. She's just so good in the wrestling department, and she can get top heavy pressure, which is great. I'm worried about Carol Rosa getting blanketed for a little bit of time within this matchup. I think that for some of the takedown attempts, as McMann gets tired, I think that Carol Rosa will have an easier time defending them or working her way back to her feet. She's a far superior striker in this situation, and I do think that she has the better jiu-jitsu game as well, whereas McMann will kind of leave her neck out there at times and get submitted, like some fight IQ mistakes. And I really like Carol Rosa as far as like a fighter moving forward within the division. But every now and then, a veteran kind of just spoils a prospect's rise within the division. And Sarah McMann could do that. She has the skills to do so. She just needs to avoid danger on the feet and put Carol Rosa on her back. So I'm taking some stabs at Sarah McMann. It's like just because she's a wrestler within this range, and if she employs the correct game plan, she could definitely pay off for us. But she's probably like my third favorite underdog. But I'm picking Carol Rosa, to win the fight, just because I think that the striking's going to be too much, the volume's too much, and I think that she's on the rise, whereas Sarah McMann's on the decline. But another week with some volatile underdogs, and like you could get some 7,000 fighters that could win a decision and not really score the best. If Sarah McMann wins this fight, it's probably because she put together tons of control time and good takedowns. So it's just something to circle and note going forward.
Yeah, I mean, Sarah McMann, age is, she's getting up there in age for a fight or two. By the way, someone asked about the pictures back there in Pete's background. Yes, those are Pete. Those are of Pete fighting.
Yeah, that's the one. Well, the ground and pound is my 11-second knockout.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
It was a while ago. You're damn right. It's a while ago. Yes,
I can tell because I can see the Dave and Buster's logo, and I know Dave and Buster's not been a sponsor of Bellator for a while.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, but that is Pete back there. Because let's move on. Next up, we got a matchup between Chris Gutierrez and Danaa. 8,500, 7,700 for Chris Gutierrez. Gutierrez is someone that, I mean, look, he's not a great fantasy scorer, but he's a good fighter, man. And those leg kicks, I mean, they're a game changer.
Yeah.
I mean I'm trying to think who's a fighter that he literally just took his legs out.
It was Vince Morales.
Yeah, Morales. Yeah.
Yeah, he just leg kicked him to death. And Gutierrez is on a hell of a run, man. And anytime Gutierrez is in a striking matchup, you have to just kind of like put an asterisk next to him, especially when he's an underdog. And I think that he's going to be everybody's darling this week, of hoping all these other underdogs, crash and burn and don't come through. And a Chris Gutierrez via decision with a low output kind of comes through at 7,700, scoring, 75 or so fantasy points. That's going to be everybody's hope, because I don't think he's going to knock out Danaa. He definitely could. He has tricky kicks, and all it takes is one kick to the head to really change things. And, I don't think that he showcased all of his skills. Everybody just knows him as the leg kick guy or the calf kick guy. But I do think that he has some, spinning hook kicks and all nice high round kicks that he can showcase in a matchup. But I'll tell you what, man, I love Chris Gutierrez from his skill set, but I'll tell you what Danaa is doing and knocking people out clean in round one, that power, with his hands, his combinations, he looks damn good. He looks really good. And he looks like a fantasy darling here at, scoring 109, 128, and 107 fantasy points. I don't think he's going to knock out Chris Gutierrez. Gutierrez hasn't been knocked out to this point. Usually if he's going to lose a fight, it's because he's going to get out grappled. But that doesn't mean that a big shot from Danaa can't change things. I'm torn on this because Gutierrez historically is a terrible fantasy producer. Only in the Vince Morales fight, he scored 114 points. But like I said, he's dangerous. And we see it all the time. Look at Molly McCann, from the clinch, threw a spinning elbow out of nowhere and picked up an amazing finish. So everybody's going to be on Gutierrez because they want him to come through. He definitely has the skills to do so. Do I do it? Oh, man, I got to side with the power. I got to side with the power of Danaa. I just have to. It's too much for the division.
Yeah, I'm siding with Chris Gutierrez, but it's more of a cash play than it is a GPP. And then really it comes down to a roster construction in terms of a cash situation of where I'll be able to fit him into his lineup. Dylan asks, will Pete be fighting again in the future?
Working on it.
Stay tuned.
I feel like everybody in Awesemo, like, dude, we're tired of hearing it. You ain't never fighting. It's been difficult. We had the COVID time for a while, and then waiting for the correct opportunity, and we got some doors opening, so we'll see. But yeah, of course, I'm training my guys, training myself, training with my coaches, and I'm excited to get back in there. It's been a while.
Let's just say there's a certain Awesemo host who might live in Tampa that has been looking at flights for a particular city. Let's just say that.
That'd be awesome. Oh, man,
let's just say that. Let's just say that gives you a little hint about kind of what's going on here. But of course, you make sure once that fight is locked in, we'll let everyone know
for sure
when that is going to be. The biggest betting favorite on the card as of this morning, already over a 7-1 betting favorite, the Black Wolf, who, by the way, this is 3 of his last 4 undefeated fighter out of Russia, won in 50 seconds. 58 seconds, 28 seconds. At 58-second win was against Paul Harris. To give you a little eye, this guy is the real deal. I think this is a showcase matchup for him. DraftKings price are not out. I expect his DraftKings price to be 9,500.
Yeah, for sure. Aliashab Khizriev is, he's a prospect for sure. And, I'm definitely intrigued with him going forward. I think that he can be a dangerous fighter for this division. I think that his striking's pretty sneaky. He throws heavy shots. He throws an excellent body kick as well. But he's a very talented grappler with good ground and pound. So he just has multiple ways to win. And against Tiuliulin, on short notice, I feel like this is just like he's stepping up just to kind of fill a spot. He's a body. He could, provide some resistance, but Aliashab Khizriev is going to get him out of there inside the distance. I'm pretty confident in saying so. I want to see what his price is. If it's anything below 9,500, which I don't expect, I would be completely surprised. And I'm going to take tons of stabs at him because he definitely has KO upside, grappling upside, finish upside. He just seems like the whole package. And, with prospects, there's always question marks surrounding. And obviously it comes down to a gas tank for him. But I like what I've seen out of Aliashab. So, yeah, that's all we got to say with that. He's going to win this fight against Tiuliulin. Tiuliulin's going to be priced in the 6K for a good reason. And it's a very difficult fight to take on short notice.
Yeah, I mean, look, I would be surprised if he's not 95, maybe even 9,600.
Yeah, I mean, if he's less than that, I mean, that's music to my ears right there. And these fights following this fight, like, starting off the card, from like the Chris Gutierrez fight down, I think is how everybody's lineups going to be. You're either going to, make the best of your lineups right here, or a ton of them are going to get broken. I feel like, excuse me, I feel like the main card and the top end of the card is a little bit easier to predict. And these preliminary bouts are pretty tricky. So I'm going to be definitely taking stabs at underdogs and making sure my exposure is correct using the Awesemo Fantasy Cruncher tool, Top Fighters tool, all the good stuff we got over there on Awesemo.com.
Yeah, of course, you can sign up for also Plus Weekly Pass for $29.95. Of course, one of the things that Pete and I love to see after the fights are over are those winning screenshots. We want to see you go into the Awesemo Hall of Fame this week. Of course, the thing you got to be doing, first off, you got to have that Awesemo avatar on your DFS profile. You get that over awesemo.com/avatar. You can tweet your wins to @AwesemoHOF. When you finish in the top 3 of the contest, over 5,000 contestants, you will get into the Awesemo Hall of Fame. You win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum when you win a contest of that size. And of course, you can only win one per calendar year. Congratulations there to Mark, taking down over at No House Advantage, first and second place, taking down $6,000. Kudos to you there in the NBA contest. Also, Travis taking down a win with the prop tools using over at awesemo.com as well. There you see our guy Nolan taking down the mini max in college basketball DFS projections. You got to check out everything we got college basketball wise to get you ready here for the Sweet 16 as well. And of course, you see all the other winning screenshots we have over there. Captain contest coming down there with a win as Nikki taking it down there. Congratulations to you, what you were able to do over there. And you see all those winning screenshots. Love seeing those screenshots. Of course, be sure also hit us up on those podcast channels. Leave us a 5-star rating or review. We really do appreciate that as well. Let's move over to the next matchup. We got a female matchup. Jennifer Maia taking on Fiorot. Fiorot 9,400, 6,800 for Jennifer Maia. Step up in competition here for Fiorot, but man, there's a reason why a lot of people are very high on her.
Yeah. So if you've been paying attention to our podcast, you know that, I've been kind of saying about, the prospect watch. Aspinall, Khamzat Chimaev, Romanov, Manon Fiorot is right up there as well. Like, I think that she is a difference maker for this division. I think that her volume is what separates her from the rest of the pack. Her combinations, just her variety, can pose fits for a lot of people within this division. She's pretty physically imposing for the division as well. So it's not like she's a small girl who could get ragdolled or taken down too easily. I do think that is the path to challenge her. I just don't necessarily know if Jennifer Maia has the wrestling chops to get it done. I know that she has excellent jiu-jitsu and has the superior jiu-jitsu, but as far as the physicality and the wrestling, like Manon Fiorot could even get takedowns in this fight if she chose to. I just think that's kind of like, going to where Jennifer Maia is the strongest. And Manon Fiorot on the outside, landing combinations at will, exiting. I thought that she looked a little bit more human in her previous fight against Mayra Bueno Silva, whereas in her first 2 fights in the UFC against Tabitha Ricci and against Leonardo, she found second round finishes. She looked unstoppable in those fights, and it was a nice test to see her go 15 minutes. And she showed off her full skill set. She's going to need a full skill set to beat Jennifer Maia, and she cannot get fatigued. She cannot just take her foot off the gas pedal, because Jennifer Maia has been in there with some of the best fighters in the world. And everybody's going to say how, she was pretty challenging against Shevchenko, but for the large majority of it, she's just going to be a punching bag until she can get you, in the clinch. And she's pretty strong there. But I think Manon Fiorot's physicality is awesome for the division. 9,400. Does she find a finish? It wouldn't necessarily surprise me because Maia's taking it on, relatively short notice. But I just think that she's just a solid play in general because her volume, and she can, find points in multiple ways, takedowns, and she's just the superior striker in this situation. So I like Manon Fiorot. I might be level with the field, not necessarily going to go over the field, because I do feel like this might get stretched out. Jennifer Maia is a little tough.
Next up, we've got a flyweight matchup between Matthias Nicolau and David Dvorak. David Dvorak, the favorite in this one. He is 8,400 on DraftKings, 7,800 for Matthias Nicolau. Nicolau coming off a win against Tim Elliott. He has won back-to-back fights. Do you like the underdog here, Pete?
I initially did, and then I watched film, and the more I saw of Nicolau and how, basically his 2 wins in the UFC, well, not 2 wins, his 2 most recent wins in the UFC are somewhat gifts. Like the Manel Kopp fight is definitely a gift. The Tim Elliott fight is, arguably a gift. He's on his back foot a lot, and he counter strikes a lot. He doesn't necessarily lead the dance. And I do think that David Dvorak's pressure going forward, just constantly being the guy who is aggressive and has a higher work rate. And that's what I really like. I don't want the guy sitting on the back foot and just kind of just hoping and trying to just edge out rounds. I want the guy pushing, and Dvorak hits really, really hard. I don't think that a finish from Dvorak is all that crazy. We have seen Nicolau take big shots at, in the past. Nicolau's best path to victory is incorporating takedowns and just kind of stifling the offense of Dvorak. So, I mean, Nicolau, when he goes, he has an excellent double leg takedown, But I do think that David Dvorak will be wise to it. I think he'll work back to his feet, and I do think that he could incorporate his own takedowns as well. This could just be an awesome fight all the way around. I'm really just thinking that David Dvorak's going to get it done here at 8,400.
And the opening fight of the night will be a featherweight matchup between Luis Saldana and Bruno Souza. 8,300 for Saldana, 7,900 for Bruno Souza. What you take, Pete?
Yeah, I mean, this is a karate point fight. It's not really a fight that I'm going to be prioritizing. I feel like everybody's naturally going to go towards Luis Saldana. He comes from a stronger camp of fight ready. I am favoring Bruno Souza in the matchup just because he's a little bit more evasive. He's coming out of, Lyoto Machida's, camp. And I do think that he has the superior grappling in a situation like this. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. And I think that Saldana has shown that he can get tired over 15 minutes, and he's a little susceptible to the body. So I think if I was Bruno Souza, I'd be digging at that body, challenging his toughness. And if they do, end up in a grappling or takedown type of situation, I think that Souza has some sneaky submission skills. So I'll be picking Bruno Souza. It's just temper expectations. This could be a staring contest, somewhat of a karate type of fight.
Of course, coming up next is the NHL Strad Show. Of course, be sure to give us a thumbs up. That definitely helps out. If you're watching us after the fact, leave your comment in the comment section. Myself and Pete, we will get back to you. Of course, Samuel will get into your super chat here in a moment. Let's give our straight up fight picks, non-DFS related main event. Give me Curtis Blaydes. Co-main event, give me Alexa Grasso.
Okay, Joanne Wood.
All right. I'll take Matt Brown over Brian Barberena.
Matt Brown, I hate that fight.
I will go Askarov against Car France.
Askarov.
I will go Latifi.
Give
me Borshchev. Magny. Rosa. Gutierrez.
Danaa Bakary for me.
All right. I will go with the Black Wolf. I think it's going to be a big showcase fight for him.
Yeah, same. Ali Ashab for me.
Fiorot. I don't even think I have to ask you.
Fiorot, baby.
I will go with the upset in Matthias Nicolau.
Okay, I'm going Dvorak.
And I'll give you another underdog, Bruno Souza.
Okay, I'm going Bruno Souza. I'm telling you, man, these prelims might make or break your lineups.
Samuel, as always, appreciate you in the super chat. His over under is 5.5.
Ooh.
13 fights.
I'm going to say that's a good number, man. I'm going to say over, but barely. I think 6 finishes is fine.
God, I think you go under.
Okay, good line.
There's a lot of fights on here that I can really see going the decision. Co-main
I
event.
can too.
Askarov France. Magny Griffin. Rosa McMann. Gutierrez Danaa.
It's a great line.
Nicolau Dvorak. there's a lot of fights that stick out to me. Congratulate. Also, do want to thank Trish for becoming a member of Team Awesemo. Appreciate that. Get back to Samuel's question here. Top 2 cash GPPs. In terms of top 2 cash, what are you looking at?
Manon, Fiorot, and Curtis Blaydes.
I'm with you on those two. Yeah, I'm with you. GPPs, Blaydes would be my number 1 just because of takedown control time upside in there. Yep. And then my number 2 would probably be the Black Wolf, man. It's going to be a high price tag you're going to have to pay, but feel really confident about that one.
Agreed.
Underdogs and to look at here in terms of from a GPP aspect.
I hate the underdogs from a GPP aspect. That's why I think Gutierrez kind of just getting 75 might be enough for some people's lineups, but Joanne Wood is the one that sticks out to me. I do think that a high volume decision could do it.
Favorite inside the distance fights for me, it'll be the main event and Brown Barberena
all day long. Somebody's getting knocked out.
In terms of top leverage plays,
It might be Max Griffin.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, very, very well in terms of that. But it's when we're talking about leverage plays, it's also something that I'm going to sit there and I'm going to see kind of how ownership plays out, and then basically on live for lock, I'll give you some better leverage spots when we kind of see how ownership is maybe moving over the next 48 hours or so. Pete, anything else you want to mention before we get out of here?
No, I just want to say thanks, guys, and can't wait to watch this card and talk to you guys on Saturday. We appreciate your support. If you can hit that thumbs up for us, we truly appreciate it. Get us over 100 likes, and make sure you tune in on Saturday so we can continue this conversation.
Also, let you know that Pete and I have a betting content video coming out over on the Odd Shopper YouTube channel. So look out for that later on today. So that's going to do it for the Strategy Show. We will talk to you on Saturday for Live Before Lock. Have a good day, everybody.